Okay, I'm on my last stitch here. As you can see, it looks like it's been stitched with 2 needles, but it's just the 1 needle and the 1 thread. It's takes a little doing, but you just go through it one way and then go back through it. It's a little tricky, but you can do it all with 1 thread without having to cut it. As long with the box cut, with the X in the box stitch, you can. It just takes a little thinking ahead, but it is possible. I was originally going to put 2 rows of stitches. Got tangled around my drill there. I was originally going to put 2 rows of stitches through each hole, but I don't know if I'll be able to get my needle through there or not. But we'll see. This is my last stitch. It wants to twist up on you a lot. You gotta constantly untwist it, untangle it. But it's not that big of a deal. Okay. And there we go. Just going to cut this right here. And tie it off to my beginning string. Then I'll mate them together with a little heat, and that should hold. And there we go. Box in a square in a X, X in a box stitch, and that should be pretty secure. All right, for next step, I'll be placing the front on. Be using my compass here to mark out even holes. Then I'll drill them out and stitch them together. Catching myself saying and a lot, guys. If you saw my first video, you know I've got a bad habit of that. Alright, so let's mark these out and drill the holes for them. Make a mark, move it, make a mark, move it, make a mark, release that one, move it on down, make a mark, move it on down, mark it, and I'll just continue like that all the way through. I'm trying to get it fairly close to my mold, but not right on top of it. And once it's stitched together, I'll come back through with my file and rasp and just narrow it down and clean it up, and that should give me a nice hard shell vinyl sheath, and hopefully it'll last a while. We'll see. Alright, we're back here. I've got all my little tick marks measured out so I can drill them out. I've got it temporarily held together with just some regular packaging tape here, masking tape, cellophane tape, I believe it's called, and I'm going to, that's just to hold both pieces together so my holes will all line up while I drill it, and then I'll stitch it together. But before I do that, we'll give it a test fit, and it looks like it'll work. And hopefully once I get it all stitched together, it'll work nicely and hold up for a while. Like I said, my duct tape one's held up for over a year. Hopefully this one will hold up for a year or more. And ultimately I'm going to make a much nicer leather sheath, but just using what I got right now, guys. It doesn't have to be all expensive. It just has to work. Okay, I'm going to get to drilling these out, and then I'll stitch them together. I got my holes drilled here, and the tape's ready to come off, and we'll start stitching it up. But before I do that, I'm going to remove the tape on one side and clean it up with a little rubbing alcohol, and then stitch it together. And I'll do that as I stitch around. I'll clean one side off, stitch it, take the tape off this, clean it, stitch it, and do the same for the other side, and then tie it all up and it'll be done. So let's get started on that. Just going to remove this cellophane tape here. Actually stuck a bit better than I figured it would. I figured it'd just all come off in one little long strip like I put it on there. Never works like you want it to for the camera. Always something. But that's part of the fun of it, guys. I'll get that later. Be mainly concerned about where the stitching's going to go, because once that stitching's in there, it'll be kind of hard to fix, clean up. Okay. This is my beginning stitch. And what I'm going to do is tie it on here, and with a surgeon's knot, and run it back up through there. And I'm basically going to do the same thing that I've done on the back. I'm going to alternate it, stitch it this way, and once that's in, I'll loop it around the stitch around itself, and then bring it back through this side, and it should all wind up right back here at this knot, where I'll tie it off to itself and bond it with heat. let's get stitching. One thing I've noticed is while you're stitching, this thread really wants to twist up on itself, and if you're not careful you can get little knots and little tangles, so you're pretty much constantly untwisting it, untangling it, but it's not too bad. It's actually pretty simple. We're just going to keep going around just like this, alternating stitching it, and once we get to this side right here, I'll loop it around itself and come back over. Okay, I've got it pretty much stitched all the way around with the first go round, and I'm going up and through this last hole in the back here, and once I come up through here, like so, you notice that's a completed stitch on this side, but there's a gap here on the front. I'm just going to go back over my stitches, back through the holes anyways, and all these empty stitch gaps here where there's no thread, there'll be thread. On a side note, while you guys were away and I was stitching this up, I got a call from my fiance. She's off work. She's heading over to do a pet slash house sitting job, and so she's not going to be home tonight. She just was calling to see how I was doing and asked what I was doing and what I was up to, and I told her I was making YouTube videos. And she said, "In the house?" Because it's dark outside. And I said, "Yes, in the house." She goes, "What are you doing?" I guess she was afraid I was making friction fire or something. She caught me watching a Skogniv's video, or Skogniv, I think it's Skogniv. But he was doing a video on friction fire in his kitchen floor one day, and she's like, "What is he doing?" And I said, "He's making friction fire." So I guess she was kind of afraid I was making friction fire in the living room, I guess. But I haven't set the house on fire yet. Just simple stitch and thread.